So I hope you can hear us. Thank you so much again for being here on time, and I can see some more people are joining us. For this seminar, we have as our guest Alessandro Bogliolo. So Alessandro is a professor of computer systems in the University of Urbino in Italy, sorry. And he received the laureate degree and the PhD in electrical engineering and computer science from the University of Bologna. He also worked with the Department of Electronics in Computer Science in Bologna University in Italy as well, with the Computer Systems Laboratory, Stanford University in California, and with the Department of Engineering, University of Ferrara in Italy. He also joined the University of Urbino in Italy in 2002, and his research interests include wireless sensor networks, collective intelligence, and digital inclusion. And he has served as a Europe Code Week ambassador for Italy since 2013 and has coordinator of Europe Code Week since 2015. And he's also author of a MOOC for teachers entitled Coding in Your Classroom Now. We are very, very happy to have you here with us today, Alessandro, and we are looking forward to this seminar. So with no further ado, I give you the floor. The floor is yours. And I'll stop sharing my PowerPoint. So
thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for organizing this webinar. I'm very happy of having this opportunity of speaking about coding within the eTwinning platform and to the eTwinning community. Because I think that eTwinning has much to do with coding and that eTwinning can do a lot for the diffusion of coding and computational thinking. So first of all, I'd like to share with you a vision about coding and to tell you something about what coding is, even if probably you already know and you have your own ideas on that. But I would like to share mine. And my vision with coding is that coding has, of course, something to do with computer programming, but it's not computer programming per se. Rather, it is computer programming as an instrument for developing computational thinking skills. So there are many very effective ways of doing and practicing computer programming without being a computer programmer, in the sense that a lot of tools which are very intuitive and playful have been developed over the last few years to help people play with coding at any age and have some fun with coding. And those rely on something that is called block-based visual programming, in which instructions are represented by blocks that can be composed as the tiles of a puzzle rather than being written as instructions, as textual instructions. And this makes the approach very, very intuitive and immediately productive, so that people can start playing with coding without having the burden of studying a formal programming language in advance. And what is nice and worth being mentioned is that these kind of tools were developed mainly to address gap issues, in the sense that there are well-known skill gaps and there are also well-known gender gaps in STEMs and in computer programming in particular. And since computer programming is by far the most effective ways of innovating, of creating something new, on realizing and implementing our ideas, there is a need for people with computer programming skills that help development and innovation in industries, in academia, in research. And in order to engage more people, especially females, with coding and with computer programming, these tools were developed and awareness-raising campaigns were launched starting in 2013 all over the world. And the most important campaigns are Europe Code Week in Europe and the Computer Science Education Week in the US, which launched the pretty famous and very effective Hour of Code campaign, engaging people with 1 hour of code in a very playful way that I will show you in a moment. But what I would like to mention is that once those campaigns were launched, we realized, we as all the people involved in this kind of campaigns, realized that coding was not only an effective way of showing and demonstrating how fun and immediately productive coding could be, but it was also a very effective way of developing computational thinking skills. And computational thinking has nothing to do with technology, but is even more important than computer programming, because computational thinking has to do with our way of reasoning, with our capability of solving problems in a constructive way, with our capability of finding a constructive solution to a problem that can be then shared. We can describe the algorithmic solution to a problem in such a way that it can be executed possibly by a computer. And by doing so, we become also able to fully understand the computational nature of the problem and to tell other people what to do to solve that specific problem. Well, computational thinking skills are definitely more important than computer programming skills, in the sense that computational thinking is for everybody, is for all, regardless of the fact that we are computer programmers. While computer programming can still be practiced by everybody, but true computer programming skills to really become a computer programmer are not necessary for everybody, while computational thinking is. So this idea and the awareness of the importance of computational thinking entailed a shift of paradigm from an awareness-raising campaign to a true literacy campaign. So right now, I would say that Europe Code Week, which is about to start this week, is not an awareness-raising campaign any longer, while it has to be considered a true literacy campaign. And this is because as soon as we realize that computational thinking has this incredible power of allowing us to have yet another instrument for reasoning, for solving problems, for realizing and implementing our ideas and making them come true, then it becomes a form of personal empowerment. It is not just something that has to be done in order to contribute to the development and innovation and competitiveness of Europe or of our own countries. It has something to do with our personal empowerment. So allowing people to experience coding becomes a matter of democracy, not only a matter of development, of socioeconomic development. So this is very important, and this is something that I wanted to share. And I have also something to show you in order to make my webinar probably more effective. What I would like to share you is, first of all, something that I mentioned, which is the website that is the main reference for the American coding literacy campaign, which is the Hour of Code. As you can see, there are a lot of resources here that are classified by age, for instance, by educator experience, which is very, very important, because something that I would like to mention is that it is not necessary to be very skilled with computer science or computer programming in order to provide some coding experience to your pupils. Rather, you can start from the very beginning, and even if you don't have any coding experience or you are not a computer scientist, you can provide some coding experience to your pupils just by practicing coding together with them. And when I mentioned block-based computer programming, sorry, visual programming, I was mentioning something which looks like any of these activities that you can find here. Let me take one of them, which is one of the most famous, because this is the very first one that was originally introduced. So if I go here, what I can see is a video. But apart from the video, I can immediately start this, and I can do it in this way. So I can click anywhere, and as you see, this appears as the screen of a video game, and we have also a character which is Angry Bird in this case, who has to reach the green pig. And the only way we have to allow Angry Bird to move is by providing instructions. And the instructions are provided here and composed as the tiles of a puzzle, as you can see. And when we compose these tiles, you can hear this click that says that the composition has worked. But there is only a way for composing these instructions, because if I put it here, for instance, it doesn't work. And this means that the syntax that allows us to compose instructions is enforced. So we don't have to learn the syntax of a programming language, because we are programming, we are providing instructions to Angry Bird just by composing these tiles as we do with a puzzle, which is a very intuitive way and also very close to our gaming experience that we have developed and experienced since we were kids. So the only part that is up to us is not the syntax, but the semantics of what we are doing, in the sense that if we do something like this, for instance, telling Angry Bird to move forward just one step, we can see what happens, and what happens is not enough to make him reach the green pig. So we have to reset and try again. And if we do something like that, for instance, you see, we do something wrong. So even if the syntax is enforced, it is up to us to make the program work to reach our target. And so to this purpose, to solve this specific puzzle, we have to do something like this. And here is the reward. We can continue and go ahead and have another scheme and so on. And if we move, we can find several different mazes that becomes harder to solve with more programming constructs and instructions that are in our instruction set that can be used to solve the puzzle. And this is the way in which coding can be approached. And if a teacher approaches coding in this way, then it can basically play with coding together with pupils rather than teaching pupils how to solve these puzzles. So coding at school is something that can really make the difference, because if we realize and we agree that coding and computational thinking are worth a coding literacy campaign, not just an awareness-raising campaign, then schools become the right place where this campaign has to be conducted, because the schools are the true inclusive opportunities that are offered to every people, and especially for kids, to kids. So this means that any actions that is taken at school is really for everybody and can have a long-term and systemic impact rather than being just something that happens in 1 hour of code, for instance, or in some place which is approachable just or appealing just for a few who are already motivated in doing some coding or some computer science. So what I would like to mention is that shifting the paradigm from skill gap to coding literacy is something that doesn't mean that the two actions cannot be conducted together. Because right now in Europe, and I would say all over the world, there are two urgent needs. The first one is introducing computer science at school in order to provide digital skills and computing and yeah, I would say also computer programming skills. And this has to be done by probably doing some kind of reform of curricula, and there are diverse approaches that are taken by governments all over Europe and all over the world. But then there is also another need and another opportunity, which is the need of introducing coding as a teaching methodology or as another instrument that teachers can possibly use also by combining it to other topics and by exploiting it whenever they want within their teaching activities. And those two flavors of coding and computer programming remind me the difference between a mother tongue and a foreign language. So I personally believe that coding that is approached using this kind of intuitive tools can be learned and acquired as a mother tongue, because the mechanisms that coding entails are exactly the same that the acquisition of our first language entails when we start to speak. While at the same time we also need to learn computer programming, and computer programming can be learned as a foreign language by studying syntax, grammar, and then start practicing with it and so on, even in a formal way. While there is the opportunity of practicing coding and developing computational thinking skills, just as we acquire our mother tongue is an informal way. So that's what I think can happen at school. And that's why I'm very happy today to speak within the eTwinning platform, because I know what eTwinning is, and I know for sure that it is the right place where to do some coding and to provide a great contribution to this literacy campaign, because you are not only teachers, but you are also teachers motivated to innovate and teachers motivated to cooperate at the international level, which is another great opportunity, because one of the key success factors of Europe Code Week is that it does not only invite people to organize coding events in their countries, but it also provides the awareness of being part of something, of an international effort, or something which is bigger than what we could do alone. And this is very, very important. And within eTwinning, you already know that this is feasible, and you already know the engagement that this dimension can provide. So, mentioning other activities like this, I could mention many more, but right now I would say something else. That is the fact that in order to make this literacy campaign effective, we have to work at school, and as Code Week ambassadors, I would say that probably the best thing that we could do is empowering teachers. So I'm fully aware that if the target are kids, the vehicles are teachers, in the sense that you know exactly which are the needs of your own pupils, and you know how to speak with them, and how to engage them, and how to play with them. So instead of creating something which is directly meant to be used by kids, in my opinion, it is way more important to empower teachers and to provide coding to teachers as a an instrument, as something that they can decide when, how, and if has to be used in their teaching activity. And this is what is happening in Italy, and this is also the approach that I'm taking in the MOOC that I have been teaching in the last 2 years in Italy, which is called Coding in Your Classroom Now. The MOOC is a MOOC, so an open, massive online course for teachers, where I just provide hints on how to play with coding, inviting them to invent their own way of using coding into their classrooms. And what is very interesting that I can and that I think and I hope that can be effectively replicated within the eTwinning community is that around the MOOC that I'm teaching, an incredibly active and proactive, not just learning community, but community of practice has sprouted. And I think that one of the main added values of the MOOC is exactly that. So the incredible community of practice where teachers can share their experiences and learn from each other rather than from me. So what I would like to mention today is that Europe Code Week, which is this incredible campaign that has involved almost 1 million people in Europe in the last edition in 2016, and that this year will go from October the 7th, so in today from now, to October the 22nd, is something that provides an incredible opportunity for everybody, and especially for every teacher, to start doing something with coding. So in my vision, Code Week is not a learning opportunity, but rather it is an ice-breaking opportunity. So introducing something new at school is not easy. It's not easy for many different reasons. Some of them are just organizational reasons, some of them are ethical reasons, some of them are constraints, lack of time, and so on. Having the European Commission, having a European movement, and having government saying, well, this is the right time at which you can do something, and if you do something at school, you are contributing to a common aim, which is a coding literacy campaign, allows you to test what happens if you experience some coding at school. And the reason why I'm very happy that today we are speaking about Code Week within the eTwinning community is because eTwinning is a partner of Europe Code Week, and there are two main actions that eTwinning is taking to contribute to Code Week. The first one is the webinar that I'm giving right now that gives me this incredible opportunity, but the other one is even more important because it's a new featured group that has exactly the same title as the webinar, so Coding at School. Coding at School is a new featured group where all of you can share your experience, propose your projects, or find other people proposing projects that has something to do about coding, possibly applied to any topic and to any school age and level. So what I really hope is that this featured group can be exploited right now by all of you to do this form of matchmaking for learning from each other, and also from exploiting all possible opportunities of creating Code Week events that will not end during Code Week, but rather will be the beginning of an eTwinning project. So in my vision, what I really hope that will happen is that some of you will launch new projects, possibly launching them during Code Week, mainly because of this ice-breaking effect that Code Week could have, But once you launch a project during Code Week, this project will end up involving other people that possibly are less familiar with coding, so that they can take advantage of your ideas, of your project building capabilities in order to just decide to take part in your project rather than proposing their own. They will benefit from the international environment that the eTwinning platform provides. And most important, the eTwinning projects will not end during Code Week. So this means that Code Week is not only an icebreaker, but if it is taken as an opportunity for launching a new eTwinning project or for getting involved in a new eTwinning project, then it works as a seed that then sprouts and gives fruits all over the year, because the eTwinning projects can last for several months or for the time that you decide it to last. So what I strongly suggest is that during Code Week you will take the time to go and visit and join the Coding at School featured group within eTwinning, and take your time to either conceive a new project or discuss with your colleagues within the platform of a new project, or share ideas about coding, or possibly look for the active projects which are still accepting other partners in order to possibly partner. And I would suggest to look also at international cooperation in this case, because this will be way more motivating for kids taking part in the projects, and will also provide another great opportunity, which is the opportunity of taking advantage of countries where teachers are already more involved with coding, to also induce other countries to do some coding at school. Because there is a great diversity in Europe of the approach taken by Code Week ambassadors, there is also a great diversity on the environmental conditions that make it possible for a teacher to autonomously propose coding projects at school. And there is also an incredible difference in the communication capabilities that allow Code Week ambassadors to reach teachers. So the eTwinning community can try to compensate this diversity in order to have more people at school having the opportunity of doing some coding and practicing some coding. So in order to be very practical, if you have questions, you can ask questions at any time, but I would like to share with you some figures and also some other web pages that are taken, first of all, from our website. So for instance, if you go to the...
Sorry to interrupt you, Alessandro, but in practical terms, what people are actually exchanging a lot in the chat and exchanging some resources, but they are also very interested in to know what they need to do in practical terms to participate in the Code Week. So I'm a teacher, yes. I have already an eTwinning project, what I have to do?
Perfect questions at the perfect time. So the event page that I'm opening right now shows all the events that are on the map right now. Those are all upcoming events. And what is nice here is that if I click on show past events, I can also see many more events, because in this case I will ask the server to put on the map all the events of previous editions, which are more than 40,000 events all over Europe. And as you can see, I can zoom in to see more and more details. but there are really an incredible amount of events all over Europe, especially in Italy and Poland, because those have been so far the most active countries, but I strongly hope that other countries will reach the same levels and possibly pass our two countries that performed best in the previous editions. But right now, let me switch back to the upcoming events. So this is the map of the events, and if I click on any of them, I can go to the details and find the details of a specific event and possibly look at the details, the place where the event will take place, and so on. But what I can do is also add my own event just by clicking on this link here. So the plus sign is the one that has to be clicked in order to add an event. And in order to add your event, you have to decide, for instance, where the event will take place. In this case, I can put Urbino here. It is the place where I am right now. And you see, here is the pin. So this is a reverse geocoding which is used to identify the location on the map. So you can double check that the location is correct. In the case it is not, you can move it to a better location. And then this is set. Then you have to set a start date. Let me do it for an event that I'm organizing myself. So I set the starting time, which is not only the date, so be careful because the time has also to be set, otherwise the current time will be taken. In this case, my event will start at 11:30, so I have to write it in this way, and it will last just for 1 hour. So here I have to say 30. Okay, here it is. Yeah, no, actually, here it is. And then I have the opportunity of specifying a reference website, as in this case, but this is not mandatory. The only fields that are mandatory are the ones with an asterisk, which is very small right now, so I hope that you can see it. But most important, I have to set a title. So the event title, in my case, is, for instance, Daily Algorithm. And I'm organizing the event. So I can put here either my name or the name of the institution organizing the event, like for instance, University of Urbino. Then I can describe the event. This is another mandatory field, so this will be a webinar. Then I can set the audience, so this will be for high school students. I will speak about, this is the topic. I will speak about, let me see, Internet of Things, motivation and awareness raising. I will speak also about basic programming concepts and so on. So as you can see, this is just a select, and we can select more than one option in this multiple answer question. And then I can also upload an image if I want. If I don't select any image, the standard image, which is the logo of CodeWeek, the colorful bubbles, will be added. And right now what I can do is just decide that this is enough, and I can say add event, and the event will be added. Notice that right now I'm also the administrator of this site, so this is a little bit confusing, so I can self-approve my event, but otherwise this is what you will see, so that this event is still being reviewed by moderators. But what is interesting is that once the event is uploaded as a pending event, there is a web page for the event, which is the one that you can see here, and I can open another window to show you that even this has yet to be approved, the web page is still active. So this means that you can already use this page to announce your event, even without waiting for your Code Week ambassador to approve your event. But only once the event is approved, it will also appear as a pin on the map. So right now on the map there are no pins for this event, while if your ambassador approves it, as I did for mine right now, then it will also appear on the map. And going back to the map, right now we could find the pin of my event associated with the location where I placed it, and that's it. But what I also would like to mention is that if you have an eTwinning project active, an eTwinning project is not a Code Week event. Rather, it is something which lasts for a very long time, possibly, which is much longer than just 1 week or a couple of weeks, like the current edition of Code Week. So what you could do, you could decide to have a starting event or any event within an ongoing eTwinning project where, for instance, you meet each other, you meet with the partners, or you e-meet with the partners, so you can take advantage of the tools provided within eTwinning to meet or to do some activities in a very specific day at a specific hour. Well, this could be regarded as an eTwinning event, as a Code Week event, sorry. And what is nice is that Code Week events have also to be reported, not just announced. So assume that on Monday the 16th, you and your partners decided to e-meet at 11 o'clock for a couple of hours, so from 11 to 1 p.m. So what you could do is each of you add to the map an event taking place in your classroom if you are participating to the event together with your pupils, and each of you can use as a name of the event, for instance, the name of your eTwinning project plus the name of your school or the name of your city, and into the description you can say whatever is appropriate, and you can say it in your own language, in order to make it possible for people in your country to fully understand what the event is about. But what is nice is that in this way, for the decisions that you take together with your partners to e-meet at a specific time, there will be not just one, but as many events as partners in the map, demonstrating and making it apparent the participation to this Code Week initiative, not just of one country, but all the countries involved in your project. And that's why eTwinning is a great opportunity, and is a great opportunity for Code Week to expand the outreach. Then after Code Week, what will happen is that all the event organizers will be asked to report on their events. And reporting an event will mean to fill in a form where you will ask how many participants you had in the event and what percentage of female participants you had, in order to compute statistics afterwards. And for each event organizer filling in the report, there will be a certificate of recognition directly provided in PDF right after the form is submitted. So I strongly invite you to act in this way. So either exploit existing coding projects within eTwinning, either launch your own project and invite partners, either look for new projects and propose yourself and your classroom as a partner, and then organize some kind of activity during Code Week involving all the partners and invite all of them to add their own events to the map of Code Week in order to gain their certificates of recognition and to make it apparent that there's a strong link between eTwinning and Code Week, and exploit the two communities and make them basically take advantage of each other, in the sense that also Code Week as a huge community, especially of teachers, taking very active part in Code Week. And I'd like also to show you something about how easy it is to organize a Code Week event, because for making something happen during Code Week, you can do many things, like, for instance, decorating your school with the bubbles of Code Week, so that you can make the feeling of Code Week lasting for the entire period, rather than being just associated with an event taking just a couple of hours. You can try to involve the entire school, and in this case there is also another initiative which is called the Code Week for All. The Code Week for All initiative is a challenge launched by the European Commission to schools in order to invite them to possibly engage not just some of their pupils or their students, but possibly all of them. And schools can register using a form, and in this form they will declare the overall number of students enrolled in the school, and they will get a unique code for the school that has to be added to all the reports of the events happening and organized within the school. So that after Code Week we can compute the overall number of participants in your school, compare it with the overall number of students enrolled, and in case the participants are more than 50% of all your students, you will get another certificate, which is not just a certificate of recognition, but is a certificate of excellence in coding literacy that will be awarded directly by the European Commission to your school. So this is another way of taking part in Code Week, but I would like also to mention that coding is not just the hour of code is not just a specific tool to be used during Code Week. Rather, Code Week is a completely open initiative that has no format imposed. So any kind of coding opportunity that you provide to your pupils is worth being considered a coding event. And even, so I'd like to mention the easiest activities that come to my mind. So probably the easiest one is watching a video, which is a very short video that I made several years ago, which is called The Language of Things. This video lasts just for 5 minutes, and it explains why smart objects are programmable objects, how it works, and it explains it in a language that is probably very accessible to kids, not just as a language, but as a form of presentation. But as any other actions taken for pupils, it has to be mediated by teachers that can act as facilitators. So if you watch this video, you can then discuss it with your pupils by engaging them in a kind of brainstorming to try to imagine which objects that we use every day actually contain a microprocessor, so are programmable, are smart enough to execute instructions. We can try to brainstorm on which objects which are not smart today will soon become smart because a microprocessor will be embedded into them. And we can even try to imagine, just by letting our fantasy run, what we would like to make smart objects do that they don't do right now. This is one activity that does not entail any specific preparation. Then there are unplugged activities. Unplugged activities means that we can do coding and develop computational thinking even without using a computer. And there is a method that can be downloaded for free, and it's a do-it-yourself activity, which is called the Codirobi. It's like a card game where cards represent instructions and there are pieces that have to be moved on a chessboard in order to act as robots, while the card players are acting as coders because they have to choose the cards and put them in sequence in order to move their pieces on the chessboard. And there are many different games that can be played using these card games, and many of these games have been considered by teachers rather than by me. And another activity is for sure the hour of code. So exploiting the resources of code.org, you can just take the simplest activity that is provided for your kids and do it with them. And this could create the common basis, like the starting level for then implementing your eTwinning projects, having done some coding during Code Week. I go back before concluding to the web page of Europe Code Week.
Sorry.
Yeah,
may I interrupt you?
Sorry? Yes, sure, please. You?
It's because we have a question from Paolo Bonata, and she asks, in her primary school, they are doing Code Week in Italy in English, in CLIL technology, and she asks if you have any suggestion for them.
Well, I think that CLIL is a perfect match with coding, because coding is a form of CLIL. Because if you do some coding and you use coding as an instrument while teaching something else, you are using coding in a vehicular way, exactly as you use English in CLIL. So if you teach your own topic in a foreign language, what you are doing is content and language integrated learning, which is CLIL. If you use a foreign language while doing some coding applied to your own topics, you are doing like CLIL at the power of 2, in the sense that you are teaching your own topic, teaching a foreign language, and at the same time helping kids developing computational thinking skills. So I think it's a perfect match. And I'd like also to point out that all these activities that I mentioned can be localized, in the sense that they are available in many different languages. So for instance, look at the instructions that you find here. Here you see move forward, but if I switch to Italian, and you see how many languages there are, I switch to Italiano, and right now the same activity is translated as instructions translated in Italiano. So this is, for instance, a very good way of linking CLIL with coding applied to your topic. And I'd like to mention another incredible resource, which is Scratch. Scratch is worth being mentioned here because it enhances the fact that coding is also a form of expression. And this is a true programming environment, but it's a visual programming environment. So I can create with Scratch, and if I decide to create, I can log in, of course, to have my own account and so on. If I decide to create, I have, in this case, these instructions that can be directly composed in this panel, exactly as in code.org, but they are active here where there is nothing that has been enforced that has to be done. So this is just a white sheet where I can do exactly what I want. I can select the characters that have to be moved in the screen. I can do exactly what I like by taking advantage of the resources that are already there or by doing something else. So for instance, I can take this character here and I can make it dance, and this is one of the activities that is directly proposed using tutorials. But what is nice here is that if I put here instructions and if I click on them, I can see directly them in action, and then if I do something like that, and for instance say that, oh, let me switch to English back. Okay, if I say that this has to be repeated, for instance, 10 times or why not forever, then what happens is that when I click on the green flag, this character starts moving and acting in this way, and I can make it, for instance, bounce at edges, and that's the effect. In this case, I can change the code, and as soon as I change the code, the behavior of the character changes. So this is a trial and error process that allows me to really learn the effect of these instructions even without knowing it in advance. But once you have done your project, you can share it. And look what happens when you share it. You make your project available, and from the main page of Scratch, you see how many projects, active projects there are, and those are right now 25 millions. So this means that if you have something in mind and you would like to realize it with coding, first of all, you can look for it. So for instance, you can look for Europe, and you can find a lot of projects already based on Europe or containing Europe as a keyword, and you can take any of them and play with it. So if you start playing with it by pressing the green flag, you can directly execute the project. But what is way more interesting is that you can look inside this guarda dentro that is not translated because of the localization on my version. If you go and look inside, you see exactly what has been done. This is a quite a complex project. You can see what has been done, and if I want to see it in English, even if, regardless of the language that was used to develop this project, I can see it translated in my own language. So this is an incredible way of sharing not just the result of your activity, but even the reasoning that is behind it. Because the coding and the code that you can see, and you can not just see, but you can also modify, creating your own version of this project. And so starting from this project and then building something new incrementally, this is an incredible way of sharing your ideas with other people all over the world. Okay, so I think that I managed to say more or less what I planned to say, but if you have questions, I will be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Alessandro. So far, they are just thanking for the suggestions and the ideas. Do you have any questions? Please write them in the chat, please. Paula, do you have a microphone? If so, I'm pleased to give you the floor and to open your microphone. Okay. If you don't have a microphone, that's no point. So multiple attendees are typing. So I hope that some questions will come up. To be honest, some of the questions that came up were immediately replied by your speech. So it was like along your speech, the questions were answered. So like suggestions of activities, what could they do, how to organize a Code Week event, and so on. How can they use their eTwinning activities in this initiative? So it was very, very useful indeed. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. I also invite you to have a look at the blog that is associated with the Code Week website, because there are news, and if you browse the news, also the old ones, you will see a lot of possible ideas that you can take to replicate. Because also nothing that notice please that during Code Week you are not required to do something original. So it is not necessarily, definitely, to invent something during Code Week. You have a lot of time to invent something new. During Code Week, just have some fun with coding to demonstrate how coding can be used and how simple it is to use it, and also how rewarding it is to introduce it at school. And then you will have time to do something original, something difficult, something challenging. During Code Week, the only challenge that I invite you to take is to involve as many pupils as possible.
Thank you so much. People were asking for the URL, the blog URL, but we already shared it in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
So please do visit. And well, if there are no questions, I think we can close this seminar. And once more, thank you for being here. Please use the eTwinning featured group to pose your questions, to share your ideas, participate as much as possible. We already shared the URL, but my colleague Theodora is going to share it again in the chat.
Thank you.
So please join the group, and we hope that you can participate very actively in this initiative. Once more, thank you.
Sorry,
Alessandro. Yes, please, go ahead.
For leaving, I'd like to mention that, and also to thank Stefania Altieri, who is the moderator of the featured group. I'd like to mention that I'm not a teacher, so I'm not within the eTwinning platform, but I am in touch with her. And in case you have any questions, doubts, or issue to raise, not just about Code Week, but even about coding, I would be more than happy to contribute through her and possibly be together with you within the featured group, even without being within the eTwinning platform.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I can read that a question is coming up. So before we close, let's just wait a few seconds for this question.
The name is Stefania Altieri. Yeah.
She's the moderator of the group. So if you join the group, you will see her. It will be very visible. So just a few more seconds to see the question. Okay, sorry, it's not related to the topic of Coding Week. I will reply later on. So thank you so much again, Alessandro. Not sure if you have further comments or not, but it was really a pleasure to have you in the eTwinning Online seminars.
Oh, I have a question.
Okay, wonderful.
I'd like to know, because someone asked me in advance, whether or not this webinar will be available later on.
Yes, it will be available. Yes.
Great.
We will record it and then we will publish it on the eTwinning portal.
Okay.
Of course, if you want to know more how to find it, you can just contact me through eTwinning, or some of you have already my email address. So yes, you can watch it again, Seren. Yes, you can watch it again. And also, just to reply to the last question, you will receive certificates for attending this this seminar. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. It was a great audience, very active, and I hope to see you in the next eTwinning Online seminar, which will be available in the professional development section of eTwinning Live. See you soon.
Bye-bye.